Lucas brought a scared pregnant girl home to his wife Jillian, and she couldn't believe it until he revealed something that happened 20 years ago, something he couldn't forget so easily. "This is Holly. She will live with us," Lucas told his wife firmly, escorting a young pregnant woman into their house. They were both wet and shivering from the heavy rain. But he sat her down in front of the fireplace to get warm. "What? Who is she? What's going on?" his wife, Jillian, asked in shock and confusion. She thought about the toddler, Lily, they had upstairs. After years of trying and many rounds of IVF, they finally had their girl and were happy. But Lucas unexpectedly brought a girl to their house and announced she would be staying. It made no sense. "I'll never forget what you did for me. I want you to let me know if there's anything I can do to repay you someday. Can I speak with you?" Jillian asked him quietly. Her lips were so tight from the stress she thought she would chap them. "Not right now," Lucas whispered and looked at Holly. "Are you hungry? Can I make you anything?" The young woman nodded shyly, wrapping her arms around her body. Lucas went to the kitchen, ignoring his wife. But Jillian couldn't be stopped. She followed him and demanded answers. "Did you get her pregnant? After all these years? I can't believe you," she accused with fire in her eyes. Lucas looked at her with turmoil inside. "It's complicated," he breathed, looking down. 20 years ago. Lucas was feeling the wind in his face as he rode his motorcycle down the highway. His life was perfect. He would soon marry his longtime girlfriend, Sandra, and they would live a beautiful life. That's what he thought back then. He closed his eyes for a second to feel that rush of speed, and the next thing he knew was waking up in a hospital with a blinding headache, unable to move due to several casts and bandages. "Hey, there, buddy. You're back," a familiar voice said, and Lucas tried to focus his eyes. At first, all he saw was white. The room was white, his sheets were white, and the person talking to him was dressed in white. But slowly, his vision cleared, and there stood a doctor. But it wasn't any random doctor. It was his old friend, Jerry. Their families had grown up in the same small town and attended the same church. The two of them had been active in youth Bible studies and even helped at events. But they drifted apart after high school, leaving that town. "Jerry? What's going on?" he asked groggily. Lucas felt someone squeezing his hand, and he looked to the right, seeing his darling Sandra. "Baby! Oh my God! Baby! You're here! You're alive!" She started bawling, and Lucas was more confused. "Hey man," Jerry called his attention. "You were in an accident. It was tricky, but my team did their best, and you're here. But man, it was a close call for a while." Lucas was shocked. He had always been a good motorcycle rider and didn't remember what had happened. But he was glad to be here. He tightened his hand, holding his fiancée tighter, and thanked his old friend. "Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much. I can't believe this," he said, getting emotional himself. "Don't mention it. I'm just glad you're here. I'll let you two have some privacy," Jerry replied, smiling, and left the room. Sandra cried for a while longer as she thanked God for this miracle. Then, she explained everything Lucas had missed. His parents had just gone to get some food, and even Jerry's parents had come to visit and show their support. When Jerry returned, he explained all his complications from the accident and how they fixed him. It would take a while for him to get back on his feet, and he could possibly need rehab. However, he would make it. Lucas got better quicker than expected, but it was still too slow for him. He wanted to do it faster, so Sandra and he wouldn't have to postpone their wedding. But his fiancée didn't want him to worry about anything. "You need to leave," Lucas insisted and started to turn. During his breaks, Jerry came to the room, and they talked about their childhood and how they used to draw superheroes on their Bibles to make things more fun during Sunday school classes. "Looking back, I'm glad we went through those classes together," Jerry revealed at one point. His face got serious as he looked directly at Lucas. "I actually prayed during surgery, man. I've never done that before. But I asked God to save you, to help me save you, I mean. And he did." Lucas closed his lips as he didn't want to cry again. Let's go out for a drink when I get out of here. I didn't know you lived in the city, and I don't want us to lose touch again, he told his savior, who nodded quickly. I'll never forget what you did for me. I want you to let me know if there's anything I can do to repay you someday. Jerry tried to tell him there was nothing to repay, but Lucas insisted. His friend saved him. He owed him something big, and he wanted him to know that. Lucas was released from the hospital 3 weeks after his terrible accident and needed a minor rehab on his arm. It wasn't too bad. But he and Jerry kept their promise and reconnected immediately. They often went out with Sandra and had the best time. He was over at their house, and although his schedule was tight, having his childhood friend be so close once again was nice until his fiancée announced something he had never imagined. I'm in love with Jerry, she revealed one night. Sandra had been distant, and they had not discussed their postponed wedding for a long time. But Lucas never imagined what she said. What? He questioned, shocked. Lucas, I know this is horrible. He's your friend, but I couldn't help it. We couldn't help it, she tried to explain, stammering through her words. It just happened, and I can't deny it any longer. He was so nice at the hospital when you were unconscious, we have such chemistry. Stop, he interjected. Did something already happen between you two? Sandra looked down in shame, and Lucas closed his eyes. The betrayal of his longtime love was a thorn in his heart. But it was even worse because she had done it with his friend. Lucas. Leave. I don't want to see you or that man again, he raged, not raising his voice but not hiding his ire. I don't want to hear what you started while I was at my most vulnerable. I hope you have a marvelous life. Sandra packed her things and left their home bawling. Jerry tried to call a few times, but Lucas blocked him. After a few days, he broke his lease and moved far away from them. He never rode a motorcycle again and eventually found the love of his life in Jillian. 20 years later, Lucas arrived home after buying firewood and other materials at the hardware/home store. He pulled open the bed of his pickup truck when a tiny voice spoke up. Hello? Jesus! Lucas turned around quickly, scared. He put his hand to his chest. Are you crazy? You scared me. I'm sorry, the young woman in front of him said shyly. She wore a hoodie and mostly looked down. Who are you? What are you doing here? Are you Lucas? She asked. Yes, he frowned. Hi, I'm Holly. I need your help, she said. Lucas's frown deepened. The girl looked young. Maybe 18 or 19. The worry on her face was evident to anyone. But Lucas didn't understand why he had to help her. I'm sorry. Why are you here? Why would I help a random stranger? He scoffed lightly. I can call 911 or AAA if your car broke down or something. But Holly shook her head. No. I'm Sandra and Jerry's daughter. I couldn't, Lucas said. I'm sorry. Lucas's world stopped for a few seconds. A million emotions ran through his body, and ice cold swept through his spine. I can't help you, he said slowly. Logically, he knew this young woman was innocent and had not betrayed him as her parents did. But he still didn't want her anywhere near him, his house, his wife, and their daughter, the light of his life. Please, Holly begged and started crying, and it was like heaven was on her side because it began to rain. They both got wet quickly, and Lucas still shook his head. You need to leave, Lucas insisted and started to turn. Please. I'm pregnant. I have no one else to help me, she stopped and begged. What do you mean no one? He couldn't help but wonder. A few years ago, my parents found out that you and your wife finally had a baby. They were driving here to give you a present, but they got into a crash. My mom died right away. Dad survived for a few days and looked all right. But I think he couldn't live without my mom. I think he didn't die in the car accident. He died of a broken heart, the young woman said between tears. Lucas's emotions were in turmoil as she continued her story. He gave me this before he passed and said to give it to you, Holly said, taking out something from her tiny bag. It was a children's Bible, and Lucas recognized it immediately. It belonged to Jerry when they were kids in Sunday school. He shook his head, and Holly insisted sadly. Please, he wanted you to have it. Lucas grabbed it reluctantly but didn't want to open it. Why can't you ask your grandparents for help? I went to live with them when my parents died, but we fought when I moved in with my boyfriend. I haven't seen them in years, and I don't think they would welcome me back like this, Holly said, opening her sweater slightly and revealing a swollen belly. Lucas sighed heavily. Jesus, kid. I had a boyfriend, but he kicked me out, and your address was inside the Bible. I just came here. Please help me, Holly begged again. Lucas shook his head once again. No, I can't. You don't know the whole story, and I can't, he said, taking out his wallet. He passed her all his money. Take this. Go back to your grandparents. They're religious but good people. Go. I can't do anything for you. Not after what your parents did to me. Then, he ran to his porch but couldn't go inside. He didn't want his wife to know any of this. He breathed slowly, almost like Jillian did during labor, and his hands started shaking. He dropped the Bible, and something fell off. It was an old Polaroid picture of him and Jerry. The back said, "My best friend, Lucas." It also had his address. Lucas grabbed the image in the Bible, which had a highlighted passage, Matthew 6 verses 14 to 15. For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. He stared at the passage for several seconds, and his mind recalled how he had promised Jerry he would someday repay him for saving him. Lucas turned and saw Holly standing motionless in the same spot. She was still getting soaking wet. Finally, he gave up. Come here, girl. Come on, he called out, and Holly smiled shyly and ran to the porch. Present. Oh, wow. I can't believe this, Jillian said, wiping a tear from her eye. You never told me about them. I couldn't, Lucas said. I'm sorry. That's fine, darling. I wouldn't be able to get over that anytime soon. But offering her shelter was the right thing to do. Now, make her some hot chocolate, Jillian said as she left the kitchen. Holly, I'm Jillian. I'm sorry about earlier. I was just a little bit surprised. Let's find you some dry clothes and get you a warm bath. Okay, she offered, and Holly almost started crying again. After everything, they decided Holly would stay as long as needed. She helped around the house and with Lily, who loved that girl. She had the baby, who Jillian and Lucas adored as well, and eventually, Lucas invited Holly's grandparents so they could talk. They reconciled, and she decided to move in with them because she truly loved that small town. But Lucas and Jillian went to visit her often. One day, he and the young woman went to Jerry's grave. It wasn't until I had your daughter in my house that I realized I had forgiven you long ago. And I always hated that I couldn't repay you for saving me. So, I'll watch out for Holly and your granddaughter as best I can for as long as I live, Lucas promised quietly that day. What can we learn from this story? Holding grudges is bad for you. Forgiveness is the only thing that will ease your soul. Everyone makes mistakes, but they also deserve to be forgiven. Lucas was better off because he finally forgave his old friend. Never forget the good things people have done for you, and try to repay those favors. It's easy to forget good things when bad things happen, but remembering them is crucial. Lucas helped his friend's daughter show his gratefulness and do the right thing. Share this story with your friends. It might brighten their day and inspire them. If you enjoyed this story, you might like this one about a woman who announced her pregnancy, and her mother-in-law yelled that her son was infertile.